Welcome everyone. Now, I have a very special story to tell you. In my travels, I've had a lot of crazy moments in my life, but this one would have to take the cake. This is the greatest story I've ever told. So the setting for this place was up north in a place called Balboa. And let's just start from the night before, taking a ferry to get there and going to my hostel, which was a little bit out of the town. And after a good night's sleep, I was up very early. Early bird gets the worm. I'm starting the hike now. So I can sort of get ahead and catch the sunrise. Fun times. Now, upon leaving my hostel, I had a few things packed, which was a battery pack that was 3/4 full, a drone with 2 batteries. I had some food with me, which was packed by my lovely hostel host, which was 1 tomato, 1 cucumber, 2 pieces of bread, an apple, and I had also brought some walnuts with me and a Kinder chocolate. That's what I had. Now, one of the advantages of going really early is no one's up at that time, it's super quiet, and number 2, when you do start your hike, it is such a beautiful sight to see the sun rise over the mountains. And I feel like when you do get to experience this in sort of the peacefulness by yourself, it's just a very special feeling, because not many people are up for sunrise, but everyone's up for sunset. So sunrise is definitely underrated. And if you are going on a hike, I would consider leaving super early. Also, a lovely activity that I've been really getting into, especially with hiking, is taking some LSD. Coming to you live from Balboa in Albania. I'm at the start of the trail and I am about to embark with my good friend again. And I think if I've timed this properly, I'm going to be able to see the sunrise, and no one is awake right now. And it's going to be very beautiful. So I'll let you know how it goes. I'll actually show you. Now, in terms of the dosage, it wasn't a full strength tab. It was probably about half of that. And that's sort of just to get into that space where you're not completely rattled or immobilized, but just enough to sort of get things going. And up at this time of the day, there was not another person in sight. And it's just a moment where you can just be alone, totally in nature. And it's a very special time and something that I look forward to doing more and more. Starting to get a little bit of light. On this hike as well, had my AirPods in, and I had downloaded a Burning Man playlist that was offline, so I could enjoy some new music whilst having some of the acid kick in, which was really beautiful to listen to some of these tracks. And the mountains in Albania are special. Sunrise is just about to drop. It's so peaceful out here. One of the things we don't really have in Australia, I feel, are mountains like these, and being in these new terrains brings a whole new energy, and it's something very unique about every single place you go to, and the fact that you can enjoy a nice hike and see the beautiful landscapes is a truly special thing that just feels good to be in nature and feels good for the soul. So the next step, it was time to have some cannabis. And if anyone has had the combination together, it does kick things up to another level. Individually, they do have a sort of potent effect, and when combined, it just creates a sort of magical experience, I would say. While I was walking, I had my AirPods in, and all of a sudden in my vision, I see a dog come through there. And I sort of got a little bit frightened because I wasn't expecting it. And this dog decided to keep following me. And it was really nice having sort of a companion there with me, sort of doing the hike as well. And unlike humans, you don't have to make small talk with dogs, and they can keep you company. And so you get all the good things about having someone else there without feeling like you need to converse or, you know, plan around their sort of needs and schedule as well. So I decided that I needed to give this dog a name. And out of all the words that I had learnt in Albanian, I decided to name the dog Bakshish. Now there's a story behind the word Bakshish. When I first arrived in Albania, I was in a taxi and I was asking the gentleman, I'm like, oh, teach me some words in Albanian. So he was saying hello, thank you, this, that. And the next thing he said was Bakshish. And Bakshish means tips in Albanian. And I just started laughing because for him to have said that, I knew what kind of hustle he was running.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, I think the name fit really perfectly because in the beginning he did sort of really respond to, or he did sort of stick around with me because I did give him some treats, but there's more to that later. And I did have a chance to fly the drone up and just see it from a bird's eye view up top to see what was going on, which is always a really cool perspective. And I was being very mindful of how much battery I use now because I knew that there was probably going to be some better views at some point. And seeing as though I only had 2 batteries, I had to be quite savvy in terms of when I was going to use it. Now at this time, the combination of the 2 medicines started coming up, and it gave me a chance to reflect on my trip this far, and sort of the people that I met and how grateful I was to be overseas again and how much fun that I was having. Something that I hadn't done in such a long time, and now that I was doing what I really love, I had this real sense of true happiness. You know, doing stuff like this there's nothing else that I would rather be doing, to be honest. And it was just a special moment that was running through me and very unique, but doing it in sort of a foreign place like Albania. If anyone has done any hikes, you'd know that there is nothing more tasty and more refreshing than drinking the water that you can source on the hike. And the water in Albania is something special.
There's nothing better than drinking water from the heart.
And so I filled my bottle up, and this is an important moment because this was the last bit of water I'd be able to refill for a while, and the bottle that I was carrying holds about 600 mils. Now here you can see the sun is nearly about to pierce over the mountain. A very unique time of the day where The sunshine is just about to fully illuminate over the valley, which is a really cool sight. Now, there was a couple of things that I learned about bakshish. Number one, he doesn't like walnuts. I thought they could have, replicate some doggy biscuits or something, but he didn't like any of that. And to be fair, it's probably not the tastiest thing I had with me. Though he did like the bread and he did like the chocolate as well.
This is the moment when the sunrise has hidden you for the first time. My God, it's beautiful.
Now, every now and then I would find a nice little lookout and just have a moment to sit and have a little meditation and just soak it all in.
Just soak it in. This is actually really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Being sort of that immersed and so quiet is just a very serene moment that you gotta take a break and smell the roses here and there. You can't just fly by the whole hike. You gotta sort of soak it all in, you know?
It's a loyal doggy. Toyo Jivo, people. This is living.
So as I was going further and further up the mountain, I started to think to myself that this hike is getting a little bit challenging, and like I'm physically fit and I've got a lot of energy, but for the average person, I think this, could be quite challenging, and there was quite a few number of people that did it. So I was like, either maybe I'm just not as good as I thought, or I'm maybe in the wrong place. So I pulled up my All Trails app and I had realized that I had gone a fair bit in the wrong direction. I had missed the turn. So instead of turning back, I just decided that I would keep going because it looked like there was sort of a path this way. Didn't really know where I was going, though it was fairly early in the day, so I could always come back if need be. And I felt like quite adventurous still, especially in the state that I was in. And I guess the higher you get, the sort of better things are. So as long as I keep going up, then there was always going to be a nice view to look forward to. The trail that I was on now, there was moments where I started like changing up other than walking. I was doing sort of some bear crawls, which was elevated, and it turned into a little bit of like a obstacle course a bit, using sort of different techniques and more efficient ways to get up, which was kind of fun. Now, there was a couple points where I thought I had lost bakshish. I had this feeling that he had just legged it back home because he realized, like, where the hell is this guy going? So I thought he had turned back. So when I thought I had lost him and I hadn't seen him for an hour, he would just randomly pop up, and I was just so happy to see him again. I don't know, I just really enjoyed sort of his company there and him being with me on this hike.
Oh my God, I thought we had lost. Jesus. I cannot believe my friend decided to join me up there. Here, after not seeing each other for an hour. Far out, what a moment. buddy. What a moment. On the edge of a cliff.
Now, as we were getting higher, things were getting a bit more steep. As you can see, the rock and the angle it was falling down. Now, this was actually a really dumb idea. So I decided to fly the drone up because I wanted to sort of capture what I was doing on sort of the side of the cliff. And what I soon realized when I launched it up with sort of me leaning on the wall is that how the hell am I going to land this thing? First of all, flying a drone just normally is a hard enough task. And then flying it when I'm on the side of a cliff, as you can see sort of the angle, and me having a backpack, this was just not a good idea. And either two things were gonna happen. I was either gonna lose another drone, which I definitely didn't want, or it was gonna run out of battery, and then when the thing starts, beeping and you're running low, it's just how you're not going to be able to handle it. So I flew it up and I realized, and I flew it back in.
I realized it was a boy. Guys, stick together.
Now here was a really, really cool moment because I had sort of made it to this pretty high peak, and it was nice, and had a nice point where I can lie down for a change, and I decided to just take all my clothes off and just be naked on the top and lie down and soak up the sunshine. I put some sunscreen on and I was just getting this beautiful sunshine, and it was a little chance for me to relax and just have some food. And I decided to do a little bit of breath work up there, and man, the whole feeling was just super, super surreal. Like being on the top of this mountain, just chilling, just feeling very rewarding, just that I made it this far. And as you can see with the drone, how extraordinary the views were. Now that could have been it. I could have decided to just go back home at this point, and feeling very fulfilled, but my curiosity got the better of me. I thought to myself, I wonder what the view up on that mountain looks like. And with the drone especially, when you're at the top when you're at the highest mountain, you got nothing blocking your view anymore. So then if I did make it to the top, then I wouldn't have to contemplate if I wanted to keep going or not. So what did I do? I decided to go to the next mountain. Now this is where things started to get a bit more sketchier, because mind you, I have embarked on this trail completely on my own, so nobody knows I'm up here, and if anything happens, I'm gonna be pretty fucked. And with some of the terrain that I was navigating through, it was pretty sketchy and pretty dangerous, and what was meant to be a normal hike turned out to be sort of a little bit of a free climb, rock climb, which I'm pretty basic at, I would say. Not too bad, but again, I was carrying a backpack and I wasn't fully prepared for this. And since I was so far away from everything, there was a little bit of fear that started creeping in, like what if, what happens if you do fall in that? So there was this instance, there was a few of these, but I only recorded a little bit of when I was sort of going side by side on the cliff to go sort of round. And if I dropped, see you later. I'm telling you that this is not going to be a good ending. Like roll your ankle, break your back, one of those two things, and you're freaking so far away from everything that God knows what would have happened. But when I was sort of like maneuvering from the cliff, what you would do, or what I did was, to just check that the surface you were going to grab onto was sturdy enough. You would grab the biggest ones. So you would grab the rock, and then you would slowly like pull yourself and just hope that it doesn't unearth off the cliff. So you would be doing this thing, just hoping to grab something, and you'd find something and you'd grab it. And there was a moment when I grabbed one, and then I put all my weight to transition, and then it would unearth, and I would sort of just like not have any stability. And I'll tell you what, in those moments, my heart would freeze. It would be like, ah! And it was fucking scary. And there was moments where I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I need to get off this thing. This is way above my pay grade. What I'm doing here, like, fuck. And then I had to have this conversation with myself. I said, look, you've got this. I know you can do this. No need to fear. You've done everything that you've wanted to up until this point, and we're gonna get down from this mountain safely, and this is gonna be one hell of a story to tell. So after I sort of had myself this little talk, I just zoned in, and it wasn't about the fear anymore. It was just getting the job done. And that happened one other time, that I had this sort of fear run through me, and I kept going, which was crazy. Now, this particular cliff that I had pointed to and wanted to make it up, there's a reason why they do mark some of the particular courses to go to, because more than likely they're the only ones you can get up. And when I finally got to this little bit of mountain here, I realized like the only way that I'm going to be getting up this particular one is if I do a full-blown rock climbing, and I wasn't going to do that on this one. And it's funny because when you see these mountains, it looks so close. You're like, oh, I'm just going to go to that one then, because it looks like there's a bit of an entryway and an angle that I can walk up. But you don't realize like how long it takes to sort of get to these points, especially because it's not just like a normal walk. You're like dodging, you're pulling, you're going all this sort of crazy sort of maneuvering. And what looks like it'll take a short amount of time takes like, a good half an hour to get from here to here, then another 40 minutes. So as the time goes on, you don't realize how long you've been outside for. And even though I did leave super early, like I was sort of, taking a lot of time, finding my way to this particular mountain. And so after many changes of direction, I finally found the route to the top of this mountain, this peak, where I was on top of everything. And this particular mountain that I was on, I didn't know what it was, but it is one of the highest mountains in Albania, and people do summit this thing. And I was up there on top of the world, dropped all my bags and took a chance to sort of relax. And I had still at this point a full battery left of the drone. And man, I'm so glad that I did savor that battery for up there, because it was just heaven. Like, yeah, the views was truly incredible. Like, it's the accomplishment that I felt as well getting up there was something that I've never felt before. It was a real accomplishment, and the fact that there was sort of some adversity that I had overcome to get there just really made me feel empowered. When I was flying the drone as well, at this point when I summited as well, Bakshish wasn't there with me. I thought he had long gone. And as I was flying the drone and I brought the drone down, Bakshish was right there with me. And I was like, is this like a dream? Is this actually happening? Like, he's followed me all the way to the very, very top of the mountain, which was 2,600 meters above sea level. So if you think about that, think about 2.6 kilometers, like a road, and put that vertical, and that's how much I had climbed up. And it's hard to sort of imagine that, like, yeah, how tall it is, especially when you look from the bottom. But yeah, I had done it, and I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but I just felt on top of the world, like truly conquering mountains. So after spending a good amount of time up there, I decided to finally leave, because I knew going down the mountain was probably going to be a bit of a mission, and my battery pack had been exhausted. So my power on my phone was running actually quite low, which means I had to savor it as well. No more music in the ear, and I needed some sort of battery just in case I was going to get stuck in the dark. And because I wasn't prepared at all, I didn't have a head torch or anything along those lines, which was a pretty rookie mistake, which I will change for next time for sure. And at that point, there was no more water left. All the food was gone, and I still had to go the whole duration back down as well. Now on the way down, I didn't record a whole lot because, yeah, I was savoring as much battery as I could. But what I didn't really realize is going down was going to take a lot longer than I expected, because when you're on the top of this mountain, it's easy to sort of climb up things, but going down is a whole different ball game. And what I realized is, if you can't see sort of the path going down, like if you can't see where you're going to go, if it sort of loses sight, then you can't actually do that, and you're going to be in trouble. So there was parts where I was, just going down, and then I would go down and I would realize, like, there's like a 1-story or 2-story drop here. Like, how the fuck am I going to get down from this? So I would have to go back up and find another way. And that takes a lot of time. Like, you don't realize it, but like, you're in these situations, you're kind of quick thinking, and then 20 minutes passes and 15 minutes passes. And I was starting to get a little bit worried because, I was looking at the time and I was like getting a bit late. I'm like, oh shit, it's like 4 o'clock or something like that. And I got a long way to go still. Yeah, going downwards, there was sort of different maneuvering that had to be done. And instead of walking down some parts, I decided to like sit on my ass and just slide down all these rocks. And yeah, I didn't have the correct sort of footwear or didn't have the correct pants or backpack. I had like my everyday sort of gadget one, which is not ideal for this one for sure. And then there was a point where I remember like Bakshish was struggling to go down as well, because I would be sort of like all fours, like slowing myself down, and then he would have to find another way. And I felt bad because he was crying a lot of the way home, and I felt like I had sort of dragged him. You know, Bakshish taught me a lot of lessons, and Bakshish was a boy, and he was a very, very loyal dog to have stuck with me this whole time. And I just kept saying to him, us boys stick together, we're gonna get through this, we're gonna both make it down to the mountain. And I was sort of sharing pretty much all the rations I could with him, to the point where we actually had we had no water and we had no food left, and I was so dehydrated. I wish I had like a full bottle of spring water that I could just gulp down. That would have been incredible at that point. So as time goes by, we're going down this mountain, we keep going down, and just hopefully finding like some sort of easy way, but there actually wasn't no easy way. There was a lot of detouring and a lot of maneuvering, and there was a point, I remember, where we were sort of like a good chunk of the way down at this point, and then in the distance, I saw 2 people hiking. And that was the first people I had seen the whole trip, the whole day. And I thought to myself, fuck, I think we're actually gonna like make this, because we're on the right path, because there's people. And because I was getting nervous, if my battery dies, I'm like, I can't even look at the maps anymore. I sort of had hope. And I yelled out to him, I was like, and they looked up, and they were far away, and they just looked, and they just waved, and they kept going, and I was like, fuck, I was gonna ask him for water or something. I was desperate. Give some water for me and my dog. I sort of jumped on the same path that they were on, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I saw the markers that we were on some sort of path, and that brought some safety back into my sort of emotions, like, we're getting closer, we're gonna make it through this thing. And then as we were going down, we crossed this really bouldery part, and I kid you not, there was this sort of metal cup just sitting there on one of the rocks, and it was sort of half full of water, and it was like God or someone had left us this water. And after not having water for the past few hours and really needing it, I remember drinking 2/3 of this water, just gulping it down.
Seriously, somebody's looking out for me. Water after not having it in such a long time.
And when you're in this state, it just energizes you. It just brings you back to life, even if it's a little bit. It's like you lubricated the system after it was like super dry. And I remember giving it to Bakshish as well, and he gave it 2 licks, and it was so cool. He was thirsty. We were both thirsty. Things were getting darker. Got to see the sunset of the mountains, which was really pretty. You know, being from sunrise to sunset, saw every bit of possible angle of the sun and the mountains, and it was just really, really cool to witness from the start to the finish. As it was getting darker, I remember coming back onto this path, and like I had already made a decision, like if we get stuck in the dark, I'm just gonna have to sleep outside, and you know, I'll go back in the morning or something, but yeah, we'll figure it out. So we're walking, and it starts getting really dark, but there was just enough that I didn't have to use the torch, and I could just go on the path. And in the distance, I see this fire, this big red flame, and I was like, we made it. We found someone. There's something there, like, we're gonna be all good. And you can't imagine the feeling of spending the entire day out and then finally finding some sort of refuge or help or some other person. And after not seeing anyone the whole day, I was so excited to see someone. And I get to this campsite, and there's two Germans, a couple who were camping there, and I just went up to them. I'm like, I'm so happy to see you guys. You don't understand. Yeah, they were like, what's going on? And I'm like, I'll tell you in a bit. I'm like, I need some food and I need some water. Have you got some water? And then we were not far from, it was just literally right next to the cafe, the original one where I filled up the water. And I went there, and I met the owner, and he didn't speak a word of English, but I told him, I'm like, have you got somewhere for me to sleep? Cause yeah, I don't have a tent or anything like that. And he had set me up with some food, which I took back to the fireplace, and I was just keeping nice and warm there alongside the fire and the Germans. And there was another 2 Germans that were there, so we're all sitting around the fire, and I was telling them about my experience and they were looking at me like, this guy's unprepared. But and what a day. It was the full moon out of all nights. There was a full moon, which was actually really special. And after I'd finished up with the guys, I'd been given my room, which was like a shed with a bed in there, and I had a chance to just chuck my stuff down and just lie in the bed, and it felt so nice, and I was so happy to have made it back in one piece, and to be held and sheltered by this gentleman, which was it was just like an angel to me pretty much at this point. And as I was trying to get some sleep, there was these moments where it was like, you know how before you go to bed, sometimes you get like those scary sort of shocks. It's like you're sort of feeling into a nightmare a little bit. I had these moments where I still felt like I was descending from the mountain, and I was like, really scared, and it was like some sort of traumatic memories were coming through, and I just had the biggest sort of smile on my face knowing that I was safe. I was fully safe, and that this day was the greatest, most accomplishing day of my life, and I will never ever forget that day, for sure. Yeah, so in the morning I woke up and I got a chance to spend some time with the owner, whose name was Razan, and he didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak much Albanian at all. But in our sort of interaction, he would say these words which I would recognize because, you know, they're English as well, but he would say, mafia and corruption. He was sort of complaining about the government, how corrupt they are. And then I was very curious because he had a very beautiful place, you know, very homely, very nature-based, and he had built the whole thing. And he would say these words like, primitive. And I just found it super funny, and I had brought my drone out to show him, and like, I don't think he's seen many drones before. He had his camera out, he was taking all photos of it and shit. And yeah, we just spent sort of the morning together. I took a photo together, and I told him like, yeah, I'll take some of this money for, like, you know, sheltering me. And he didn't want to take any. He's like, no. And I'm like, this guy, just such a generous guy, this stranger that I've never met, being so hospitable to me. It was such a nice thing for him to do. And especially because, like, you know, I guess Albania is not a country where they make stacks amount of money, some of them. So like, for him to sort of not want to take it was really nice. And yeah, I did leave him some money because I told him, man, you pretty much saved my ass. Like, this is the least that I can do. And then that's it. I headed the rest of the trip to finish the normal hike, the normal way I was supposed to go. And after I'd done that, I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, that one's pretty easy actually, compared to the one that I went to. But after that, I was spent, like I was done, and I was busted up. My arms, my legs, my ass. Yeah, but that's my story. The greatest story that I've ever lived through. And now you know what I went through. Now here is some of the drone footage of my epic sort of time on top of that mountain. One that I will never, ever forget. And it's got me excited for doing more hikes now.
And although the mountain may seem impossible from below, we begin with the first step and on to the next. As we know, moving forward is better than backwards. And although we may not know where we're going, let our heart guide us and our soul hold us, and nature heal us, and our dreams fuel us. And although we may seem alone and afraid, know that we are never alone, as God finds us dressed in many ways. You are more powerful than you think, a conscious creator, paving a path that no one has walked, a conqueror of worlds, a beacon of light, illuminating hope through complete darkness. Your time